Score more with the college-branded Venmo debit card and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash. Got paid back? With the Venmo debit card, you can instantly access your balance and spend on what you want, like game day snacks, gear, tickets, and more. The more you do, the more cash back you can earn. Plus, there's no monthly fee or minimum balance. Sign up now at Venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
So good, so good, so good.
New spring arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off Rag & Bone, Marc Jacobs, Free People, and more.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome. Today, I'm joined by a special guest, North Carolina's Governor Josh Stein. Governor, thank you for being on Under the Dome.
Dawn, it's great to be with you.
Stein is a Democrat who is heading into the second year of his first term. You're listening to this episode early in the new year. We're recording it in late December in the Executive Mansion Library. We're going to talk about the year ahead and lessons learned by the governor. So because we're looking ahead to January, you're entering this month, this year, the second year of your term. And North Carolina has the distinction of being the only state in the country that does not have a new budget. There's a stalemate unless something happened in the few days between when people are listening to this. Lawmakers are done with their work for the calendar year and still have not come to an agreement. There's a stalemate. There's always some sort of budget fight. It feels like every year. A lot of times it's once it gets out of the General Assembly and it's between the governor and the legislature, but they haven't even agreed to send you anything yet.
That's right.
So how is that? I mean, I'm sure you didn't start the year thinking that's what was going to happen.
I assure you, I did not think we would be in a position where we're in late December and there's no budget.
So how do you go into starting, a new calendar year more than halfway through the fiscal year? And aside from just, only a couple very small spending bills, just all of this uncertainty and all of the fallout from it.
Yeah, I am here at the table. Whenever the legislature is ready to join me at the table and get to work, I'm ready to welcome them. Mm-hmm. You're accurate in your description that the dispute really isn't between me, the Democratic governor, and a Republican legislature. It's between the Republican Senate and the Republican House, which is very unusual. 50 state general assemblies, 50 state legislatures, 49 of them have enacted a budget this year. Only one has not, and sadly, that's North Carolina. I think we desperately need a budget. We're able to keep government functioning at the most base level, but we haven't given teachers a pay raise. And that means that teachers in the schools today are earning less in real dollars than they did last year. And that's just inexcusable when we have among the lowest paid teachers in the entire country. State law enforcement hadn't gotten a pay raise. We haven't been able to help local governments fill public safety, law enforcement vacancies. They haven't fully funded Medicaid, which is a real looming risk as we enter the new fiscal year. They need to pass a budget that invests in our people in a fiscally responsible way. The irony is the core dispute is the Senate cares deeply about a children's hospital and the House cares about fiscal prudence. Mm-hmm. And I'm with the House on fiscal responsibility and I'm with the Senate on the children's hospital. And so I could resolve their disputes immediately if they would seek my mediation counsel. I've been offering conversations with them along the way to fund Medicaid and other urgent state needs. So I'm going to keep pushing them. I'm going to keep letting them know I'm here to be a constructive partner. But fundamentally, we need them to step up.
Well, let's talk about strategy. There were, two things that really stood out as far as your dealings with the leaders at the legislature. One would be when the House budget proposal, which a majority of Democrats voted for, including, the Democratic leader, you visited the legislative building, under the radar that morning. And then so many Democrats voted in favor of the budget, also saying why they don't like it, but the things they liked, like the changes with the tax revenue triggers, the teacher pay, so similar priorities. And then that just turned into this huge stalemate over taxes. And then with the Medicaid rebase funding and just, this past few weeks, you changed the initial deadline of October 1st. Looking back now, would you have done either of those things differently? Either, I guess like telling Democrats if this is something you want to vote for and we can be part of further budget negotiations on that front. And then also the Medicaid funding deadline.
It's important that we have a fiscally responsible budget, no matter what is in it. It has to be prudent. And we're on the path to fall off a fiscal cliff for no reason other than there are pre-programmed in tax cuts that are going to take out billions of dollars. In 2 years, we're looking at a $2.3 billion shortfall from where we are today. So understand today, we have among the lowest paid teachers in the country. We have among the lowest paid highway patrol officers in the country. We have among the lowest paid correctional officers in our prisons in the country. We do not invest enough in mental health care. There's so many things where we need to make investments. And the idea that we're going to take $2.3 billion out of our revenues when we're not meeting the needs today, to me, is wacky. And when you add on top of that the fiscal uncertainty coming from Washington, D.C., that just compounds the imprudence of these tax cuts. The federal government's pushing more SNAP costs onto the state. They're pushing more Medicaid costs onto the state. They're taking out $5 billion on an annual basis starting in a year and a half from Medicaid when we're having struggle just paying the $300 million to fully fund it this year. Has nothing to do with the cuts that are coming from H.R. 1, the bill that the president trumpeted. So we've got all this fiscal uncertainty coming from Washington. We've got an economy where we're not really sure, are we heading into recession? The idea that you would then have these pre-programmed tax cuts to take revenue out when we don't have enough as it is, that's not right. The House recognized that issue. And so I had no problem acknowledging that. They also paid teachers a lot more than the Senate did. Now, that doesn't mean that there weren't things in the Senate bill that I like more than what the House did. I like that the Senate paid more for law enforcement. I like that the Senate had the Children's Hospital in it. That's why there are differences, but all of these things are resolvable if we'll just get around the table and talk about it.
What about on Medicaid? Looking back now with that, putting pressure on lawmakers to add funding and they couldn't come to an agreement. Would you have done anything differently, or will this kind of change how you look, negotiate going forward?
Well, it just shocked me that the legislature identified this problem, that Medicaid didn't have enough money. They agreed we needed more money. They actually agreed on an amount to appropriate. And yet they allowed unrelated disputes that were central to this budget negotiation to get in the way of doing the base thing of solving the Medicaid problem. There are other things that they did on an interim basis. They helped us with DMV. I was very grateful for the appropriations and policy changes they made at the DMV. It's helped us to lower the wait times of people who go to the DMV. So they were able to do some things, but I don't know why they wouldn't agree on this. And they really tied the hands of the Department of Health and Human Services. They knew, if you look at the projections, the rate of spend, we're going to be about $300 million short at the end of the fiscal year from what our rate of spend is. It would be imprudent. And in fact, the law says HHS cannot spend money it does not have. So we told the legislature, we're in this pickle. We're in a vice where we know we don't have enough money. You know we don't have enough money. Just give us the money. And they refused to do it. Which to me tells me that it was actually the right decision for HHS to institute the cuts because they couldn't trust the legislature to do the most basic thing, which is to fund Medicaid. There were a series of lawsuits from affected parties, and that essentially tied the hands of HHS and made them go back to the levels of September 30th before the cuts were instituted. And mind you, that's what I wanted all along. I never wanted any of these cuts to happen. And so now it's just all on the legislature. Are they going to ensure that Medicaid continues to exist well into the future?
So do you think that there will be something by March if the funding runs out in April?
I think there will be. I mean, I think there will be. I thought, but then again, I thought there would be in August.
Right.
I thought there would be in September. I was almost certain there would be in October, and I thought there would be in November. And so we need, as a state, if people care about the strength of our healthcare system, and mind you, this is for everybody. We have 3 million North Carolinians who are on Medicaid. That's a lot, about 28% of the population. But it's not just Medicaid patients whose health care is in jeopardy, because if you have these providers, and this is disproportionately true in rural areas, who serve a heavy dose of Medicaid patients, and they are not getting paid for their services adequately to stay in business because their margins are that thin, and they close their doors. Yes, the Medicaid patients have now lost access to health care, but so has every private payer patient lost access to health care because that provider is no longer in business. So this is a real consequence, a potential consequence to the entirety of our healthcare system, which is why I think the legislature will do the right thing, and I will continue to call on them to do so every day.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have more with North Carolina Governor Josh Stein.
Springfest is happening now at Lowe's. Keep the spotlight on your yard with Stay Green Premium 2 cubic foot mulch, 5 bags for $10. Plus, when you want more help indoors, get up to 40% off select major appliances that help you supercharge your chores. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid to 4/22 while supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowe's.com for details. Mulch offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii.
Chronic migraine, 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more, can make me feel like a spectator in my own life.
Botox, onabotulinum toxin A, prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. It's not for those with 14 or fewer headache days a month. It's the #1 prescribed branded chronic migraine preventive treatment.
Prescription Botox is injected by your doctor. Effects of Botox may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions, neck and injection site pain, fatigue, and headache. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, including ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Why wait? Ask your doctor, visit BotoxChronicMigraine.com, or call 1-800-44-BOTOX to learn more.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan, here with North Carolina Governor Josh Stein. Before the break, we were talking about the legislature. I want to talk a little bit more about the General Assembly. House Speaker Dustin Hall has proposed wanting to take a deeper look at property taxes. And what are your thoughts on he's got a variety of changes he's proposing. There's a study committee, but wanting to not have as much of a property tax burden on people at the county level. Do you think the state government should get involved in that?
Well, I'm very sympathetic to the consequence of taxes on working folks. And I think we have to support families that are struggling with the high cost of living. And the way you do it is twofold. One is you help them get more income, better paying jobs, good jobs. And we've been working so hard on that side of the equation. We had the best jobs year in North Carolina history. 34,000 new jobs we've announced, $23 billion in capital investment, and they're spread out around the state, which is great. So we want people to earn more money, but we have to address the cost of living, whether that's housing or childcare, health care, or electricity. And one way you put more money in people's pockets is through the tax system. We need to have a fair tax system. Right now, what the legislature is proposing to do is to fully eliminate the corporate income tax and to lower the income tax, which both of those things predominantly benefit well-to-do people who earn a lot of money or they're shareholders in corporations. I think let's freeze the taxes where they are, keep the personal income tax where it is, the corporate income tax where it is, which is, by the way, the lowest corporate income tax of any state that has one in the country. But there are tax changes we can make that will put more money in people's pockets. I proposed a working families tax cut. I proposed a child tax credit, a child and dependent care tax credit. All of these serve to help people who are struggling to make ends meet, put more money in their pockets, let them enjoy more of the fruits of their labor. As it relates to property taxes, I'm certainly open to that conversation. We have to be mindful that the revenue from property taxes don't go to the state.
Right.
They go to counties and cities. And so they have their own burdens on their budgets in terms of paying for law enforcement, paying for the local jail, paying for the parks and rec, paying for police officers, garbage collection. And so anything that the state does should hold local governments harmless.
What do you think about sales tax? That's never something that usually Republicans like tax cuts, but not necessarily sales tax cuts. Would you ever want to cut sales tax?
I proposed a sales tax relief holiday for going back to school because, again, it's about helping parents who are trying to make ends meet. And I also wanted to give money to teachers. North Carolina had their teachers put in about $600 a year of their own money. Again, these are among the lowest paid teachers in the country. Take money out of their own pocket to buy school supplies for their kids. I want to be able to give a stipend to teachers for that. I want to have a sales tax holiday for parents going back to school. So I think we need to look at the entirety of our revenue system and come up with something that gives us adequate revenue to make sure that we're not cutting off our noses to spite our face, but in a as fair way as possible. And by fair, I mean, let's not put more of the burden on people who are struggling with the cost of living.
Like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, we're recording this in late December during Hanukkah. You're the first Jewish governor of North Carolina. So I wanted, what's the, personal significance of that and celebrating? I know Hanukkah isn't, a major holiday, but to celebrate that, your first year in office. And then also, as we're recording this, the tragedy on Australia, just days ago, and concerns or worries you have about security, increased anti-Semitism.
Well, anti-Semitism is on the rise. I had a meeting with a group of rabbis on the first day of Hanukkah before we lit the candles, and they documented the number of increases, and it's been exponential, like a tenfold increase in the last 2 years, just here in North Carolina, of reported incidences. And then, of course, the absolutely heartbreaking tragedy in Australia where Jews were killed because they were Jews, and devastating. So we have to take the issue of anti-Semitism real. There's all forms of hate. There's Islamophobia. People hate people just because they're Muslim. People hate gay people because they're gay. They hate Latinos because they speak a different language. Like, there's a lot of hate out in the world, sadly. And what we have to do as human beings is recognize that we are all children of God, every one of us. And just because somebody is different than us in one way or another doesn't mean that they are any less worthy or any less entitled to the fullness of the opportunity of being an American. And so we have to speak up and say that loudly. It was a very nice, a moving ceremony, lighting the menorah on the first night of Hanukkah with a lot of folks who were excited about that.
Do you have security concerns for, yourself or others as, public events?
Not day to day. It doesn't impact the way I look at my job. I'm very grateful for the security detail that I have. They're very professional, very hardworking. That they work all kinds of crazy hours, and so I have confidence that they're going to do everything in their power to keep Anna safe.
I wanted to move back to this battle between the branches that happens a lot before we get to something lighter that I'll end with. Instead of headliner of the week, we'll go with something else. But one thing that happened before you even took office was changes to the state auditor's powers, and that impacts you both with appointments to the Board of Elections, and then most recently in one of these small budget bills, office space, and the Albemarle building where you have offices and Department of Administration. So is that something that I assume you didn't know, as much going into the year, kind of sort of these changes in the balance of power, and how are you going to look ahead to, if there's more coming, if there is a budget, there'll be policy in there.
I think it really just comes down to priorities. Like, why are you in your position of authority? which comes with some power. Why are you doing it? Is it to help other people, or is it to amass more power? And the reason why our founders created 3 branches of government, separating the power among them, is so that it all balances each other out. And there's not too much power concentrated in one set of hands. And one of the greatest, I think, demonstrations of wisdom is if you have power, to not exercise it to the fullest if it is not in the long-term interest of others. And the legislature has been all about trying to take power away from me because I'm a Democrat. They've been trying to take away power from voters because sometimes they choose to elect a Democrat. You know, we had one congressional district that was competitive in the last cycle, and they chose to elect a Democrat. The Republican legislature said, no, you were wrong in making that decision. We're going to draw the districts in such a way to make it really hard for you to exercise your own will. We want to decide for you who your representation is. That is arrogant and misguided. Meanwhile, they went back and came back into session to do this redistricting. They refused to pay for Medicaid. Their priorities are just wrong sometimes. And when they do, that has long-term damaging consequences to the state, which frustrates me and upsets me because we should be about what can we do to set North Carolina up for long-term success. I'm very grateful to the legislature for the partnership they've had with me with Hurricane Helene. Very grateful to the legislature for the partnership we've had on economic development, bringing Jet Zero to Greensboro, 14,000 jobs, tremendous. I'm grateful to them for their partnership on fixing the DMV. I just wish they would put more of their energy towards what are constructive things we can do together to make this a better state for our people, and less about what can I do to amass more power to the detriment of my political opposition.
How has it been working with Senate Leader Phil Berger, who you've known for several years, and then House Speaker Dustin Hall, you didn't know previously, but you obviously know a lot more about working with him this past year. So how would you describe your interactions with each of them?
I think they both have been constructive. Obviously, there are some issues where we are in alignment. I just identified a number of them. There are other issues where we are have strong differences of opinions. I've identified some of those. But one thing I can say about both of them is that everything they've said has been true. They've been frank. They've been honest. And I don't think you can have a constructive working relationship if you can't believe what the other side is telling you. Again, that doesn't mean we always agree on the nature of the conversation, but I respect them and am eager to work with them for the good of the state.
So I'll wrap up with someone that you are that are in your political party, so you agree with, and you also have the same name. The other governor's Josh, I guess, like if they say it like that, like attorneys general. So I understand you have like a group text where the three of you talk. So tell me about that. How often do you interact? Do you give each other gubernatorial advice? What do you talk about?
So just for context for listeners who don't know, the governor of Hawaii is Josh Green. The governor of Pennsylvania is Josh Shapiro. I am, of course, Josh Stein. Shapiro and I have known each other a long time. We came in 2016 as attorney generals together. We worked hand in hand, arm in arm in the opioid matter, and he was instrumental, and we secured $55 billion for America to hold these drug companies accountable. North Carolina's share was $1.5 billion. So I know Shapiro really well, better than I know Green, but I like Josh Green very much. We go to conferences and see each other, and that was when the text chain started. And there you go, the Joshes.
Have they, as we're looking into 2026, have they given you advice? Do you have advice for them as far as what you're hoping for this coming year?
I haven't heard specific advice from either of them. Shapiro and I just have a lot in common because we're both AGs. We both represent swing states. He's Pennsylvania, I'm North Carolina. So we have a lot of things that are similar. So I talk to him frequently and just bounce ideas off of him. And yeah, he's a solid citizen.
Okay. All right. That's all the time we have. I'd like to thank Governor Josh Stein for being on Under the Dome. I'm Dawn Vaughan for producer Kevin Keister. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Under the Dome and NC Insider, and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.